keeping this covenant. Man's had enough of it. Trust. My people are suffering every day. The sin that we smothered in. It seems like we loving it. Do we? Cause we never stopping it.
Us grace and mercy to see another day. That He's woken us up today, giving us life to still know and understand His name, to still be in His truth, to still wake up and be able to congregate, come around one another, to love one another. Let's start off in the book of Hebrews, chapter 10, verse 24.
The book of Hebrews, chapter 10, and verse 24. And it reads, "And let us consider one another to provoke unto love and to good works."
Right. So in these last days, we must consider one another and provoke one another into righteousness, good works, to do the right thing, to make the right choices, to give good counsel unto one another that is expedient for their growth and wisdom. Read on.
Verse 25, "Not forsaking the assembling of ourselves together, as the manner of some is, but exhorting one another, and so much the more, as ye see the day approaching."
Right, the approaching. I go to 1 Thessalonians chapter 5 and verse 2. For the day is approaching, and we see so many things happening upon the earth. Right, the Lord stirring up people's spirits to commit mass murders, hailstones that are knocking people out, right, making them go to, like, giving them severe injuries, going to hospital. So there's all types of things happening upon the earth. You got this submarine thing everyone's joking about. Right, you got a lot of things happening upon the earth. These are the last days, and we have to make sure we check our spirit, because at any time the Lord, He will send these plagues, and He's sending them right as we speak. But there's more to come. There wasn't just one plague in Egypt, right? There was 10. Right, 10 for completion. It's going to be a complete amount of plagues sent upon Babylon until it will be destroyed.
Right.
Let's read that.
Right. This is 1 Thessalonians chapter 5 and verse 2. And it reads, "For yourselves know perfectly that the day of the Lord so cometh as a thief in the night."
Right, we should know that perfectly. You shouldn't forget that. We should make sure we know that the day of the Lord, it comes as a thief in the night. So let us remember and reminisce that our Lord is our Redeemer, and He's come for us, the children of Israel, and He's coming for the upright in heart. Let's go to the book of Psalms, chapter 73 and verse 1. It's a good thing that the Lord has come for us. So we pronounce this amongst the people, and we're glad in this. We want to let everyone know that this is the gospel. The gospel is for none other but the Israelites. Let's read it.
It's the book of Psalms, chapter 73 and verse 1. "Truly, God is good to Israel."
God is good to who?
God is good to Israel,
Right.
even to such as of a clean heart.
Right.
So it's a great thing that we know that the Lord is coming for the Israelites, but we also have to remember that we have to have a clean heart. If we don't have a clean heart, and we will perish just like everybody else, and we don't have to labor all this time just in vain for no reason.
Right.
So we want to enjoy this thing to the end. We don't want to give up. We don't want to let our minds. Let's go to Hebrews chapter 10. Start at verse 36.
This is the book of Hebrews, chapter 10, and verse 36. And it reads, "For ye have need of patience."
You have what?
For ye have need of patience,
Right.
that shall after ye have done the will of God, ye might receive the promise.
Alright, so we need patience. So when we do the will of God, we can't just give up. When we do something that's righteous, when we turn away from sin, we can't just give up from there. Right? We may have had a whole life of iniquity and evil that we've done, and we wash ourselves away from that. We don't know, okay, one day I did the right thing, now that's it, I'm gonna make it now. This one day, I prayed and I fasted this day. That wipes away everything I ever did. did, I can just kick back, I'm going to make it now. It doesn't work like that. We have need and patience that after we've done the will, that we're going to receive the promise. So we have to keep on doing it. We have to keep on doing the right things. Right? Yeah, you prayed, you want to increase more and more. Let's get down to 1 Thessalonians chapter 4 and verse 10. I read on.
Verse 37. For yet a little while, and he that shall come will come, and will not tarry.
Right, it's going to be a little while that YAHAWAH'S is going to come, will not tarry. Right? He's not going to wait around for no man. He's going to come when the Most High sends that order out and that decree for him to come, and then he's going to come. Read on.
Now the just shall live by faith.
Right, go on.
But if any man draw back, my soul shall have no pleasure in him.
That's why we can't give up, because the Lord will not have pleasure. Faith is what pleases the Most High. So what doesn't please him? When you draw back.
Right.
When you go back into your old ways. When you go back to the old man. That's what doesn't please him. But there's joy in the heavens when one sinner repenteth. So if you're not repenting, you think there's joy in the heavens? And if there's angels that have no joy in them, don't you know there's death angels? There's angels literally called death, right? And destruction, right? So you don't want to make these angels mad, because you see what they do, right? Let's go to 2 Maccabees chapter 15 and verse 36.
This is the book of 2 Maccabees, chapter 15, and verse 36. And it reads, 35, I can't. 2 Maccabees, chapter 15, and verse 35. And it reads, he hanged also Nicanor's head up on the tower, an evident and manifest sign unto all.
So like 22.
God. It's the book of Maccabees, 2 Maccabees, chapter 15 and verse 22. And it reads, therefore, in his prayer, he said, after this manner, O Lord, thou didst send thine angel in the time of Ezekiel, Hezekiah, king of Judea, and didst slay in the host of Sennacherib.
Right, the Assyrians, right? So when Israel, right, or Judah specifically, was battling against the Assyrians, right, the Lord had mercy upon them, and an angel came, right, to, like it says in Psalms 34 verse 7, the angel of the Lord that campeth around those that fear him. Read on.
100 fourscore and 5,000.
So the angels slew 100 fourscore and 5,000. 185,000 Assyrians. That's what an angel did. This is what the angels of the Lord do. Right? They're waiting, right, just to see when you slip up. Right? Let's go to the history of Susanna. I was going in this the other day. I know, verse 57. Verse 59.
So this is a history of Susanna, 1 and 59. And it reads, then said Daniel unto him, well.
So history of Susanna, that's in the Apocrypha.
Yeah, no, I couldn't hear it.
Oh yeah, history of Susanna, yeah.
So it's a history of Susanna, verse 59. Then said Daniel unto him, well, thou hast also lied against thine own head.
Right, so we have to be sincere in this truth, right? So in the context, right, men are bearing false witness, so you can't bear false witness, right? One form of bearing false witness is not speaking the truth of this gospel, right? Lying against the scriptures, that's false witness. But we're the true witnesses, right? We're the real Jehovah's Witnesses, right? Right, speaking righteousness.
Right.
Let's read it.
For the angel of God waiteth with the sword,
The angel of God does what?
waiteth with the
To
sword,
do what?
to cut thee in two, that he may destroy you.
So when you go off and you're bearing false witness, lying on the scriptures, just doing wickedness, there's an angel waiting to cut you in two pieces. Right? So we want to understand that we want to be on the right side with the Lord. Right? We don't want to make him mad, because he does get mad. He generally does get angry. Let's go to look at Isaiah chapter 5 and verse 25. That's how we got in this situation in the first place. There's angels watching us all the time, waiting to cut us up with the sword. Right? The angels are not there like Cupid with the bow and arrow, little babies with wings. Right? Just shoot an arrow in your butt. Right? To make you fall in love with someone else. That's not what they're doing in the heavens.
Right.
They actually got a sword in their hands. Right? And it could be against you and it could be for you. You want to pray that the Lord has mercy on us, because these angels have swords in their hands and they're coming for war. Right? They're coming for to execute righteousness. Right?
5 and 25. Isaiah chapter 5 and verse 25, and it reads, Therefore is the anger of the Lord kindled against his people.
Against his people. So anger of the Lord is not just against the other nations. And the Lord just lets us get away with anything, right? Go on.
And he have stretched forth his hand against them, and have smitten them.
Right, so stretch forth the hands, and that stretching forth of the hand is like just giving them licks, right? Like a backhand. Go on.
And the hills did tremble, and their carcasses were torn in the midst of the streets.
And that's what happened to us. Right? That's what the KKK was doing to us. That's when it was feeding us to the alligators. Our carcasses were torn in the midst of the streets. Why? Because the Lord was angry at us. Right. So, it's the Lord sending these angels and these spirits out and putting them upon man and making them do wickedness. Right? So you can have angels wait to cut us up in two. So you can't fear the eyes of man, because the eyes of the Lord are 10,000 times brighter than the sun.
Right.
So the Lord sees everything we do. So you can't get away with anything, because the angels are waiting to cut you in two. You're worrying about someone else didn't watch what you was doing. So yeah, this person ain't gonna cut me up with he ain't gonna rebuke me. This person ain't gonna get onto me, because he didn't see what I did, or she didn't see what I did. So I got away with it. But there's an angel that's watching, waiting to cut you in two pieces.
Right.
And saw what you've done, and knows what's in your heart. Read on.
For all this, his anger is not turned away.
His anger is not turned away, so that's why the Lord is still angry at us now. So you continue to punish us, right? Go on.
But his hand is stretched out still.
So the Lord still stretched. He stretches out his hand unto us. He still wants to help us and save us from this affliction. So that's the mercy that the Lord has of us, right? And for this reason, what we're going to go into is why we have 12 tribes of Israel scattered abroad. So, we have different types of Israelites. You have the kingdom of Judah, tribe of Benjamin, Levi, right? And the tribe of Judah, which most of us may come from. But there's other Israelites that are scattered into the 4 nations upon the earth. So we have to understand that it's not just us. That's only 3 tribes. So we have to understand who else is Israel, because we gotta show our people who they are according to the scriptures. And you should know that we teach that the Native Americans, the Latinos, the Hispanics, and there's other tribes around the world that would be Israelites, according to the scriptures and according to the prophecies. Right? You have some tribes because in East Africa you have Israelites. Right? Not everyone that's an Israelite, they have to be African American or Jamaican or Caribbean. No, you can. There's Israelites in Kenya. Right, that you had the Mau Mau rebellion, right, from by the Kikuyu, Right? You have Israelites in Ethiopia, in Eritrea. Not everyone that's East African or the Ethiopian that they're a Cushite. They're not all Cushites. It's a Cushitic region, but the Lord, He scattered us. Let's go to Isaiah 11 and verse 11. The Lord scattered us.
Isaiah chapter 11 and verse 11. And it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall set His hand again the second time to recover the remnant of His people, which shall be left from Assyria and from Egypt.
So that's the Middle East, but on a deeper level, right? That's America. Go on.
And from Egypt.
Right, Syria and Egypt. So on a deeper level, it's America and Europe. Go on.
And from Pathros.
Right.
And from Cush.
And from Cush. There's Israelites in Cush. Right, there's Israelites in East Africa. So there's not just Israelites, you had to be put on a slave ship to be an Israelite. Right? We know this is one of the signs that the people went through, but the Lord said that we were scattered abroad as well. We have to understand the whole thing. Go on.
And from Elam.
Elam in India. So you have in India, you have Israelites as well. Right? Not every Indian is just a dirty, stinking patel. You have some people in India, the Siddhis, right? And they came from East Africa in a slave trade. They actually came to India on the ships, right? You had slave ships from Mozambique and the Tanzania region, right, during the times of the Arab slave trade, and they was on ships, and they was taken to Middle East, they was taken to Asia, China, Japan. So you have Israelites all over the world. And not just that, because of the wars like World War II and the Korean Wars and stuff like that, and the Vietnam War, you have some Israelites that got dispersed into Germany, that got dispersed into Korea and stayed there, that got dispersed into Vietnam and stayed there, and Japan. So you have Israelites all over the world. And we're like as the sign of the sea. Go to Hosea chapter 1. Verse 10.
It's the book of Hosea, chapter 1, and verse number 10. And it reads, Yet the number of the children of Israel shall be as the sand of the sea, which cannot be measured nor numbered. And it shall come to pass that in the place where it was said unto them, Ye are not my people, there it shall be said unto them, Ye are the sons of the living God.
So in this place in our captivity, we're now remembering and understanding that we are the children of the Most High.
Right, so even going into that, we're going to dive a bit more into the Hispanics, Native American Indians, right? To see if they actually are, because we can't just, have the mindset of appeal to common belief where people say it's just a circle of black people, it's just a circle of black people. That's ignorance. Sirach 5 and 15 says you can't be ignorant in a big matter or a small matter. So go to a couple of precepts and just dive into that. We're going to go into history as well. So I hope everyone's got their pens and papers. We're going to give out a few sources to look at. We're going to go to precept.
So book of Sirach chapter 5 verse 15. Be not ignorant of anything in a great matter or a small.
Right. So literally, we can't be ignorant. We can't just be trying to graft everyone in, right? We can't just say, okay, like, for example, like the Indians or so-called Hamites. And I say Indians, I'm talking about Elamites, right? We can't just say, okay, well, that's an Israelite because he's dark-skinned. That would make sense. we can't do that, right? So let's get Psalms 9 and verse 15 first. Oh, sure. 15, Psalms 9 and 15.
This is book of Psalms, chapter 9, verse 15.
Right.
The heathen are sunk down in the pit that they made. In the net which they hid is their own foot taken.
Keep reading.
The Lord is known by judgment, which he executeth. The wicked is snared in the work of his own hands.
Right.
Higayon Selah.
Right, so the wicked are snared in the work of their own hands. Because in some of the sources and the books that they've actually written, you will see that they're actually exposing, oh, we know that even in the maps, they're showing that there were Israelites in the west coast of Africa, Israelites in the, all scattered all over the world. So in certain books and sources, we're seeing, oh, these Edomites, the so-called European man, knows that they know who the children of God are. They know that, right? And that's the same thing with the so-called Native Americans, right? So let's go to the basics. Let's go to, you got this? Come on, bring it out.
You go to Revelation chapter 12. Verse 16. Revelation 12, verse 16.
Go.
Yes.
This is the book of Revelation, chapter 12 and verse 16. And it reads, and the earth helped the woman.
Right, the earth helped the woman. So the woman is what? Israel. So the earth is helping Israel. Right? So you have a lot of artifacts, a lot of knowledge that's coming back. Right? So there's certain things that even, Esau he'll make and he'll go into. And it's been a long time where we've been able to use their resources that they've found, which really they've based off our resources, to be able to uncover what's been going on in the earth in different dispensations of time, in the Middle Ages, in the times of the Roman Empire, and the times of the Egyptians, and the times of places and different lands. For the research that they've done, because they've cut off our heritage, they haven't been able to completely cut us off. So the earth is helping us, right? Things around the earth, right? The other nations, they're helping us remember who we are. For example, on a basic level, Bibles, right? They're printed off paper and the things that's made from the earth. Right? The Lord did that, right? We didn't do that. We didn't make that happen. Right? Technology, for us to be able to go on the internet, right? Look up certain things and find out who we are. A lot of us came into the truth, right? Because of the internet. So that's the earth helping the woman. That's really, a miracle. I don't know, I can't speak for everyone, but I don't know how the internet works, really. I couldn't make a phone myself. I couldn't connect to the fiber optics and the Wi-Fi's. I don't know. I just press the buttons on the phone and it does that. And then I can, connect with my brothers and I can research things. That's the earth helping the woman. That's the mercy that the Lord is having on us so that we can remember ourselves, like it says in Baruch 2 and verse 30 and 1 Kings chapter 8 and verse 48. Let's read on. I finished that.
And the earth opened her mouth and swallowed up the flood which the dragon cast out of his mouth.
Right, so when these nations come against us in tribulation, the earth is going to be in our favor, and it's going to be against everybody else.
Cool. Let's get Isaiah 34 and verse 16, because like he says, it's interesting that these devices have been at first we kind of looked at it like, oh, it's kind of a detriment, because you kind of see social media now, really, it's kind of a bit boring. But when you now start using it in righteousness, you're kind of looking, there's certain browsers you can type in, like Yandex, Brave, where you can type in like maybe Israelites, and something more in depth will come up, for example. Yeah. But so that's where you see now the internet is actually being used to tell us who we are. On YouTube now, you kind of see, hey, there's Israelite sisters, brothers, teaching, oh, we're the people of the book. You know, so it's mighty, you know, that, you know, the Most High's kind of put it on the spirit of the so-called white man to create these devices to allow us to wake up in these last days, right? Got that?
Right.
There's the point real quick. What we used to use YouTube for before we came into the truth. Now we have the truth. You know, you can go into like documentaries.
Yeah.
Right. You can go into different camp videos and stuff like that and breakdowns. What was he using YouTube for before that? Right. Folly. Right. He was watching the music videos. Right. Listening to all the songs of the world, right, and watching movie trailers, whatever you was doing on there, right, that was unprofitable. Now, your feed might just be purely just edification. 5 years ago, 10 years ago, it would have been something completely different. So that's the difference where we're using these things in righteousness.
Right.
So all praises to the Most High. So it's not that these things are inherently wicked, right? We're using it in righteousness. This man really just makes it wicked because they're given over to the lust of their heart. But our lust, which really means desire, our desire is the kingdom. Right?
Yeah. Praises to God. 34 and verse
16.
16. Okay, cut. Isaiah chapter 34 and verse 16, and it reads, "Seek ye out of the book of the Lord and read. No one of these shall fail. None shall want her maidservant. For my mouth it have commanded, and his spirit it have gathered them."
Right. So, you can't match the Bible and the Quran, right? Because the Bible is it's the that's the powerfulest book on the earth today, right? Because look at us today, man. We've come to this understanding and know that we're not just these bywords that we've been called, man. So it's important to really understand that this book, and when we go to these sources, right, the Bible's the final. It's how can we say it's like the final authorization. You know what I'm saying? If it doesn't align with the Bible, it's going off.
Right.
That's the facts. If it doesn't align with the scriptures, it is going off, right? Because we have, they got the Talmud. Certain books, obviously Joshua, Jubilees, Enoch, they don't align with what the scripture actually says. When you compare it, and that's why it's saying, none of these shall make her. You see what I'm saying? And let's get, you got that as well? And get Deuteronomy 4:2.
This is 2 Timothy chapter 3, verse 15. "And that from a child thou hast known the holy scriptures, which are able to make thee wise unto salvation, through faith, which is in Hamashiach, Yahawashi."
Right. So the holy scriptures, right, set apart scriptures, not the same. It's not like the Quran. It's not like the Talmud. It's not like any of these books, man. Right. So that's when you really line up history with the scriptures, like you go through Chronicles, Kings. You can see this in history at certain periods of time where certain kings were ruling. And it matches up with all that. How does that make sense? Why do we believe in the Bible? Because it's history, man. It's the truth, right? I'll go to you as well. 2 Timothy. Let's get 2 Timothy 4 and 13.
2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 13. "The cloak that I left at Troas with Carpus, when thou comest, bring with thee, but especially the parchments."
Right. So obviously that's even showing in terms of the apostles, right? When they were studying, it wasn't just the scriptures they're studying. There's other books, right, which match up, like we're going to go into today to show, okay, cool. That's why there's the scattering of Israel to this part of the earth, to that part of the earth. It's all going to line up, right? You got that next as well?
Yeah, Proverbs, yeah?
12 and 6.
12 and 6. It's the book of Proverbs, chapter 12 and verse 6. And it reads, the words of the wicked.
Salakia. That's it, Psalms 12 and 6. Yeah, Salakia. Psalms 12 and 6. Salakia. And then, see that?
It's the book of Psalms, chapter 12 of verse 6, and it reads, the words of the Lord are pure words,
Right?
as silver tried in a furnace
Right?
of earth purified 7 times.
Purified 7 times. That's going into the completion, man. So whatever this the scripture is saying, hey, it's not just okay. They kind of just last minute change ups. And I remember, I don't know if anyone's paying attention to what's going on. They're trying to do a AI of the Bible. They're trying to like rewrite the Bible using AI. Gonna hear certain verses talking about man laying with man. It's not gonna say that. It might not say that. It might try, and that's what we gotta watch and pray and be diligent in these last days, man. So right, let's now go into these sources. You got what you said? Okay, cool. Let's get Deuteronomy 33, verse 17.
Recording in progress.
All right, Deuteronomy 33 and verse 17. We're gonna start from there, and then we'll see second Ezra 1.
Okay. Deuteronomy chapter 33 and verse
17.
17. God. His glory is like the firstling of his bullock, and his horns are like the horns of unicorns. With them he shall push the people together to the ends of the earth.
To where?
To the ends of the earth.
Keep going.
And they are the 10,000s of Ephraim, and they are the thousands of Manasseh.
Right, keep going.
And Zebulun, he said, rejoice, Zebulun, in thy going out, and Issachar in thy tents.
Right, read 19 as well.
They shall call the people unto the mountain. There they shall offer sacrifices of righteousness, for they shall suck of the abundance of the seas, and of the treasures hid in the sand.
Right, so that's going into, people say, oh wait, how did the Hispanics, how did they become Israelites? Hey, Moses knew about this, man. In the Torah, this is the Torah, Moses knew about this. And this is something, I think obviously when you're in the start getting to the truth, you start reading certain verses, you kind of go back over it, and you're like, wait, that says that? To the ends of the earth. Where's the ends of the earth? Right? It's not it. That's not Africa. The ends of the earth is not Africa. Right? That would be the outskirts, if anything. So that's going into your Americas, right? Your Southeast Asians, right? That's the ends of the earth. That's the outskirts, right? So it's showing here that Moses knew about the scattering of the 10 tribes, or 9 tribes if you want to go deeper, right? So this is from the beginning. Like I said, some stuff we read early on, you kind of read over it again, and then you get the understanding. Oh, that's what he was talking about. That's so you got to prove it. That's it. Let's kind of dive into it now. Let's dive into the sources, right? So, first thing I want to pull up, right, is Nature Knows No Color Line, right? This is by J.A. Rogers. Nature Knows No Color Line. It's a very, very good book. It goes into the history of us even in Europe, in and about Europe. So, J.A. Rogers. J.A. Rogers. Yeah, so this is a really, really mighty book, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure, and it kind of covers it covers a lot, but let's get into it. We're going to go to page 65. Write down page 65. So, even when it comes to the term mulatto, I'm sure everyone, has to understand that means so-called mixed race. But we know that there ain't no such thing as mixed race, right? Because you are what your father is, the seed of your father, seed meaning sperm, right? And obviously we know, and we're not going according to Esau science, we're going according to the word of God that has been purified 7 times, right? And none shall mate it, right? So I'm going to read a few lines from the book, right? On page 65. And if you want like PDFs and whatnot, I have them available, can share them with anyone, feel free to ask, So, and this goes back into the point that in Psalms 9 and verse 15 to 16, where it says that the enemy, they made these books and not realize that they're waking up people, man. And that's even shown how the Most High has, puts the spirit on these people to kind of reveal stuff to us, right? This is page 65. Oh. And it reads, So on page 65, chiefly because I'm having an issue with the PDF itself, right? It says that the mulatto did not originate in the Americas. So the mulatto did not originate in the Americans. Although it's a common belief that we hear the conquistadors, the Edomites, came over from Spain. They took our women and they produced Hispanics. That's what some people believe. And we're not saying that every Hispanic, because some people, they say they're Hispanic, but they're really Edomites. They're conquistadors. So that's the one thing to always catch people out. Oh, is your father conquistador? Is he, is he native? Because chiefly we are dealing with the native people, right? Cool. So that's nature knows no color line, right? Cool. Let's go to Ephesians 3 as well. Ephesians 3 and 3, brother. Sure. Alright, man. Because as well, and then we'll go into some of the curses. Because when you look at the curses as well, that's the Native American Indians and the Hispanics, so called, right? What sounds 3 and 3. Ephesians 3 and 3. Sorry, Ephesians 3 and 3.
Ephesians chapter 3 verse 3. How that by revelation he made known unto me the mystery, as I wrote afore in few words, whereby when you read, you may understand my knowledge in the mystery of Hamashiach.
Right, so whereby you read, man, and even rightly dividing the word, studying, right? That's how we're going to get this understanding, right? So I'm going to read out. Go on.
So the word mulatto, etymologically, right, would be a Spanish word. That's why, it sounds Spanish, of course. Going back to the word mule. So mule, it just basically means hybrid. So it can be an offspring of a donkey or a horse, or it can mean some type of hybrid in some type of sense.
Right. So we're gonna, even as far as archaeology, right? Because we got there's archaeology that's been found in the Americas. We have, like, for example, the Lost Lunar Stone. Sure, maybe people have heard of that. I could pass it around. If anyone wants to have a look, right? I'll read it out, right? It says, so this is the Lost Lunar Hebrew inscription, right? It has long been received, it has long been the received opinion with many learned men that the lost tribes of Israel crossed from Asia at Bering's Strait and spread over the continent of America. And the only wanting to sustain this hypothesis was the failure to find satisfactory evidence among our Indian tribes to fix them as the descendants of the fugitive Israelites. Let's get as well 2nd Esdras 13 and 40 as well, right? In this view of the question, the evidence in favor of the Nabajos is stronger than can be adduced in behalf of any tribal people, right? So I'm going to pass around my phone and everyone can have a look, right? And it reads that above Hebrew inscription is very unique for several reasons. First, it is written in an ancient Hebrew script, right? So it goes as far as archaeology being found there, right? So I'm just going to quickly pass my phone around. So cool. Everyone can, I'm sure brothers and sisters know, right? So this is a Lost Lunar Stone. It's this ancient Paleo Hebrew. Right, you have a look. Yeah, if you zoom in, you can see that's ancient Paleo Hebrew right there. See that? I mean, I can share the PDF into around with the sisters, and then you guys can have a look. Right. So Lost Lunar Stone. Please write that down. That was found in the Americas. Yeah. There might be multiple names for it, but we know it as the Lost Lunar Stone. Lost Lunar Stone.
Recording in progress.
It's spelled L-O-S and then Lunas, L-U-N-A-S. Lost Lunars. I'm gonna go to that. I'm going to that. Lost lunar stone. Yeah, have a look, have a look. Because we've got approval things, right? We've got approval things. So yeah, cool. So cool. Everyone's seen that. I'm sure if you're online, just have a type up lost lunar stone, right? So now
they're taking crafty counsel. That's what they do. They sit around that round table, and that round table with all the nations. You see that we ain't there. We ain't there. None of the Israelites around that table. They're confederate against us. They consult against us. You know. So yeah. So carry on, bro. Yeah, please.
Verse 4.
Okay.
They have said, "Come and let us cut them off from being a nation."
From being a what?
From being a nation.
From being a nation. That's what they do. They don't allow us to be around the head talkers and the MI5, the secrets of the world. They don't let us in. We just got to land. We just got to be here to live it out. We're not going to know beforehand what's going on. They're against us. Carry on, man.
That the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance.
Right, but the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. This is why people are scattered abroad, not knowing who they are, calling themselves Dominican, and thinking that being a Dominican is being different from the Israel. Okay.
And that was a while ago, wasn't it? Yeah, sorry. So, as well, you know, if you've seen Black Panther 2, right, that's a beautiful movie. Right, this is going into what we're speaking about the Southern Kingdom that came out of Africa and the Native Americans being the lost 10 tribes, right, coming together in this thing. Right, and it had a beautiful scene when they was on the ship together, right, that touched my heart.
Yeah, so like you said, there's obviously been a separation between our people, where we go according to how we look, and we see, okay, his skin's lighter than me, he's not one of mine. But you don't do that with the Indian man or the Somalian man. So you know, if you're gonna maintain that same energy, you better treat love your brother. That applies to the Indian man too, then, because he's dark, no. You know, same thing with the Sri Lankans. Yeah, they should do what they Israelites as well. You know, so, you know, same thing with the Somalians. They're black. And remember, we asked the Somalian, we said, oh, so what? There's a term called Jarir, right? The term Jarir, right? He said, I said, that's an offensive term, right? He said, no, not really, but so it is then. He said, yeah, like, basically is, and that's how in their, you know, they kind of segregate because they're so-called Bantu Somalians, right? Or Zanj people, I believe the term is, right? They're discriminated by the native Somalians, the native Africans, which are Somalians. They call them Jarir, which is like saying, it's like calling them, you know, niggers. That's what they do. And that's something that, you know, within our generation, we kind of hear that in school. You kind of might have heard that in school. They say, oh, he's a Jarir, you know, derogatory terms that they use, you know, in and amongst us. But let's go back to the Northern Kingdom, right? So like I mentioned, about the cuneiform tablets, right? This is, if you type it in, just write this down. Chief Joseph's cuneiform tablet. Chief Joseph's cuneiform tablet, right? So like we've established, we know that Israel was taken captive by the Assyrians, right? And that's in the land of, you know, your Asia Minor, right? That's that land. They were taken captive there. So I'm reading from a website, right? And like I said, there's certain books here. What's the term where you chew the meat and you spit out the bone? I think that's the word. Yeah, you chew the meat and you spit out the bone, right? Because there's some books, you know, it holds certain pieces of information, right? Like the Book of Mormon kind of talks about the Native American Indians or the Hispanics, so-called, being Israelites, right? So on this source, right, which is called Book of Mormon Evidence, right? It says cuneiform in America 4,000 years ago, right? So it says, judging from the artifacts they left behind, the Assyrians and Sumerians made quite an extensive voyage to the Americans about 4,000 years ago. This first installment of a free entry blog. So it's talking about this blog, right? So this is showing cuneiform was in the Americas 4,000 years ago. But we know this is not talking about the Elamites. This is talking about Israelites, because we just read that in 2nd Ezra 13 and verse 40 to 45, that the 10 tribes would be taken to the ends of the earth, right? Same thing with Deuteronomy 33 and verse 17, right? We're seeing that, right? So I'm going to read what it says. It says, the most famous piece of evidence passed down among the Dispersed tribe of Montana was a strange cuneiform tablet known to us as the Chief Joseph tablet, housed in the museum at West Point, right? So there's, again, going back to that cuneiform. Cuneiform is not just found everywhere. Because is there cuneiform in Africa? No, that's a thing that the Assyrians were doing, right? Cuneiform writing, right? So, and then there's another piece of information as well where we have, let me pull it up. It says, it's called, let me get that, it's called, there's also, when you go to Chief Joseph, you'll see that he's holding a specific satchel or bag, right? And on that bag, it's got the Assyrian star, right? It's got the Assyrian star on it. So there's little bits and pieces that are in so-called Native American history that you see, right? So we're going to go into terms of the law. We're going to go back to the law, right? In terms of the Native American Indians, right? Because you know, things like tabernacles, right? You know, I'm quite excited for that. Most High willing, we have that, right? Tabernacles. That's a practice that the Native Americans were also keeping, right? You want to put up? Right? So this is, again, same page. It's called the Book of Mormon Evidence, right? And it's going into the Yuki tribe, Yukis, right? And it says that it's called the Yuki Harvest Festival, right? And then the person who's written this is comparing the festival that they had to what we find in tabernacles, right? Yukis, YUCHI, Yukis, right? Yukis. It says, it is there, the Yukis agricultural festival, that is so amazing, for it is described in detail in the Bible, right? So it says in the 23rd chapter of Leviticus, Dr. Joe Mahan points out that there are far too many resemblances for this to be accident or sheer coincidence. So he's saying that for them to be observing this is not just, okay, they kind of just saw it online or something. You know, this is something that they, like we know, only Israel is going to keep the commandments, right? So it says, you know, the Feast of Booths or Tabernacles, we know we dwell in tents, you know, it's a seven day holy day for us, right? And let's get into scriptures, right?
Leviticus chapter 23, verse 33. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, The 15th day of this 7th month shall be the Feast of Tabernacles for 7 days unto the Lord. On the first day shall be a holy convocation. You shall do no servile work therein. 7 days you shall offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord. I'm going to go down. To verse 42. It says, Ye shall dwell in booths 7 days.
Shall dwell in what?
You shall dwell in booths 7 days.
Right.
All that are Israelites born shall dwell in booths.
Right, so all that are Israelites born, right? Not heathen, right? So now let's go back to what it says here, right? It says this, the Yukis make a pilgrimage to their religious center on the 15th day of their harvest month, right? During the 8-day festival, so this is going to the festival that the Yuki tribe keeps, right? It says, they live in booths that have open spaces in the roofs and are covered with foliage and tree branches. Because obviously in tabernacles as well, you got to put the little branch on top of, you know, you got that?
Leviticus chapter 23, verse 40. And ye shall take you on the first day of the boughs of goodly trees, branches of palm trees, and the boughs of thick trees, and willows of the brook, and ye shall rejoice before the Lord your God 7 days.
Exactly. Right, so there you go, so I'll read it again. And it says again, so and are covered with foliage and tree branches. So we see that same custom. That's in the Bible, man. The Yuki tribe, so-called, they're keeping the Feast of Tabernacles, right? And it says there is a sacred area in which fire is kept burning, and they celebrate by walking around the fire in a circle, right? So you see that it's not sheer coincidence. It's identical to what the Bible is telling us, that Feast of Tabernacles. That the Israelites are keeping that, but so are Israelites that don't even know they're Israelites. They're keeping the same ordinance, man, right? So now let's go in depth into the sources, right? So we're going to go into one of my favorite books at this point, right? This is called When Scotland Was Jewish, right? This is a really, really good book. When Scotland Was Jewish, right? This goes into King James. King James was a so-called black man, no doubt about that, right? So this is When Scotland Was Jewish. It's by Elizabeth Cadwell Hirschman and Donald N. Yates, right? It's by Elizabeth Caldwell, Caldwell, right? Hirschman, Hirschman, right? So When Scotland Was Jewish. Again, PDFs can be sent around to get this document, right? So in this document, this goes into how obviously our people were also in the land of in Scotland, right? Here in Britain, right? Because we know that chiefly when you go to history, we were everywhere, right? We're the sand of the sea, man. We're innumerable, right? So let's get that. So I believe if we go to page 65. No, we're going to go to page 21. Page 21. So write down page 21, right? Because we're going to kind of turn up the heat a bit. You know what I'm saying? We're going to turn up the heat a bit in terms of showing that our lineage, because it's talking about the so-called African Americans. Even our lineage goes back to King James, right? So this is page 21, right? And it reads, when Scotland was Jewish, right? It reads this. It says, H.R.H. Michael Stewart puts the circumstances in a rather straightforward manner in his narrative. The Stewart family maternal line in France was descended from the tribe of Judah, right? He believes his family is of Davidic ancestry, that is from the Jewish King David, right? And he is therefore a Jew by descent. So the Stuarts were among that set of French families that came to England with William the Conqueror and his Norman army in 1066, right? So this is just obviously touching on King James, but we tend to hear King James, he's a white man. He was this. Now King James was an Israelite. King James knew he was an Israelite, right? So let's go further on. Let's go, Shalom. Let's go further on. We're going to go to page 33 now. So this is all going to line up. It's all going to line up, right? Page 33. Okay, and it reads, right? So this is talking about the Stuart and even the word Stuart, that goes back to the word Swar, meaning of dark complexion. So when you see Stuart, because obviously now they kind of whitewash the images, Job 9 and 24, where they've changed and they said, okay, King James was a white man. No, he wasn't, man. King James was a so-called black man, right? He was an Israelite, right? So Stuart is going back to the word Swar, right? So now let's read page 33. That's what it reads, right? It says Stuart and Caldwell, right? Two families that were in Europe, right? It says the Stuart donor scores match with those of the Caldwell donors in the second wave of immigration. So now we move to a discussion those Jews or crypto Jews who joined their core religionists in Scotland after 1300. So there were Israelites that were already here and they were joined by other Israelites, right? A lot of the time we had Israelites would be in a certain part and they kind of know, oh, there's Israelites. Like Paul, he wrote to Rome, he wrote to Spain. We see that in the scripture, right? So now it says, this is where it gets interesting. It says, what we term the Caldwell-Stewart haplotype, right, is the most frequent male haplotype on record. So haplotype, that's going to your blood type, right? So it says, it is widely distributed throughout Europe. In America, it occurs in most ethnic populations, including the African American and Hispanic. due to admixture. So the same haplotype that King James had, right, is found in Hispanics and African Americans. Why is that? Is that sheer coincidence? It's because we're Israelites, man. So the Bible is telling us that, and these other sources we've acquired all praises to show that we're the Israelites in the Bible, man. Right? Come on, you got a point? Come on.
So something you can also look up is the language Gaelic. So Gaelic would be the ancient language that was used in the Britons. You can find this pretty much anywhere. But it says here, Gaelic is the Celtic language of Scotland. It is closely related to Irish. The work below, so this page, I can send it out after. It goes into the similarities between Gaelic and this particular language. So the work below appears to establish a convincing case showing a definite affinity between Scottish Gaelic and the Hebrew tongue. See that? So there's many similarities between Gaelic and the Hebrew. So, right, words like Don and other one, right? There's a lot of words in the Gaelic which comes from the Hebrew. So that's why there's a distinction between a lot of wars between the Scottish and the English.
Right.
I believe at one point they were called not the commandment keepers.
Yeah, covenant keepers.
Covenant keepers. Right? The Scottish were known as the covenant keepers. And even the word Briton etymologically goes back to the word covenant in the Hebrew.
Yeah.
So our people that have been here, right, and established themselves here. So when that slave trade happened, and there were ships coming from Liverpool and Bristol and these types of places, they were also responsible for taking our people from the Britons into the Caribbean and Americas.
Right. So let's get John 8 and verse 31. John 8 and 31, I believe it is. Let's get that. Because we're not just, some of these sources that I'm going to pull up some more, right? Some of these sources, they're before Wikipedia. It's not no one kind of went online and they, because there's an edit button on Wikipedia. I can put my own information in. We're going into these sources that they have to be scanned because they're so, you can't even open a book pretty much, man. You got that? It's good.
John chapter 8 verse 31. Then said YAHAWAH'S to those Jews which believed on him, If you continue in my word, then are ye my disciples indeed, and ye shall know the truth.
And ye shall what?
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
Right, man. So we got to really understand that it's not just so-called Negroes that are Israelites, man. There's Native Americans, Seminole Indians, right? There's Hispanics, right? There are people too, right? So now I'm going to put up another source. Put up another lovely source, right? This is called the medieval. It's called the medieval empire of the Israelites. The medieval empire of the Israelites. And I'm going to go to page 29 on this one, right? So this is going into Ecuador chiefly, right? So again, Northern Kingdom, right? And it reads, as regards the South American Indians and their possible relationship to the lost tribes of Israel, an article was published in the Israeli newspaper Ma'ariv, right, December 1974, with the following content. So it reads, in 1587, the Jesuit Nicholas Deltu was sent to South America by the King of Spain for missionary purposes. And this is the same thing you're seeing in the land of Africa, where they kind of send the Jesuit priests kind of come over to bless you with the spirit of a white Jesus, man. And then say, okay, here you go. And then now your people are destroyed and you're wondering why, right? Same thing, right? And it reads, to convert the Indians to Christianity. That's the same thing that happened to us. Same thing, you see, that to convert. So if they're converted, what were they before that? What were they doing before that? Just like us. We came into Christianity. We were Muslims. but what were we before that? Same thing with slavery. We were slaves, we were, taken on, but what were we before that, right? Let's go further now. So it says, in Argentina, Nicholas discovered a people who bore Jewish names, namely Abraham, David, Moses, and so forth, right? So now you're seeing it goes even as far as the name. Same thing with our people sometimes. You might, have a child kind of called a Leon. You kind of got that Yah, That's the same spirit, man. Same spirit. And then it says, to the question about whether they were circumcised, these people answered yes, just like our ancestors. Let's get Genesis 17 and 10, right? Because now we're seeing the same thing. It's not just sheer coincidence with these customs. Hey, they were following the scriptures, man. And the Lord, and chiefly, the law's supposed to be in your heart. You're supposed to, you might not have a scripture sometimes. I can't eat that because I just know I can't eat that. That's in your spirit, right? So let's get that. Let's get that thing on the verse on circumcision, Genesis 17 and 10.
Genesis chapter 17, verse 10.
Right.
This is my covenant, which ye shall keep between me and you, and thy seed after thee. Every man-child among you shall be circumcised.
Right, man. So that's circumcision now. Physical circumcision, not circumcision in the heart. Physical circumcision that the so-called Hispanics in the land of America were keeping. Why is that? That was like KRS-One, he says, why is that? It's a very good song. He says, why is that? And let's read further. It says, just to emphasize, it says, yes, like our ancestors. So the people, their fathers before them, were doing that same practice of circumcision, right? And it reads, in the same region were stone knives used for circumcision. Sharpened stone knives are also mentioned in the Bible. Sharpened stone knives are mentioned also in the Bible as instruments for completion of the rite of circumcision, right? An Argentinian tribe where a stone slab with three commandments was found to cause no less interest. So again, same thing into archaeology. There's more things, not just circumcision, not just keeping the law. There's even as far as their names, right? You got that recent. Right, so I'll read on, and it says, it's on these stones it writes, do not steal, do not lie, do not kill, right? One may assume, we're not assuming because we know, because we brought out the lost lunar stones, which shows that they had the commandments written down on this stone. So it's not about assume. So that's why you've got to be careful with certain sources. Esau will try and say, oh, we believe, we think they could be the lost tribes. Hey, they are. Because when you're lining up the precepts, right, when you go through customs, you're going to start seeing, okay, it's not coincidence, right? Right, we're not assuming nothing, right? We're rightly dividing and going through and understanding the truth, because the truth is going to be the thing that's going to set you free. Because a lot of our Hispanic people and Native American Indians, they don't know what's going on, man. They can't, and even in the British Museum, you can see that the Native American Indians, they wore fringes. They wore fringes. Let's get numbers as well. Numbers 15 and 38 in Nathan Public Show, right? They wore fringes. You got that? Right?
Real quick, this is the book of Joshua, chapter 5, verse 2. At that time, the Lord said unto Joshua, make these sharp knives.
Make what?
Make these sharp knives. And circumcise again the children of Israel the second time.
Right. So you see that? That's when we're going into the tribes in Argentina, right? The tribes, chiefly in the Americans, they were doing the thing of circumcision. Why is that? Is that a coincidence, or is that something that we see in the scriptures that's now the customs that their fathers were doing before them, right? It's the same thing, right? Let's get Numbers 15 and 30, because and I don't need to pull this up to show you images of Native Americans wearing fringes, man. You can head down to the British Library, British Museum. There's a section on the Americas. You can see they had fringes. There's no ribbon of blue, but they had fringes, right? Let's read that.
Just to put even in the westerns. In the westerns, when they come against the Indians, they get the red Indians in the films and stuff, they always have their fringes.
Yeah, man. Yeah, and that's a good point. Because, even to add on to that, you got to understand, even the wars that the Native Americans had, they hated the white man. They hated the white man, right? But you want to add on that? You got Numbers 15?
Alright. So in Joshua 5 verse 2 it says, make these sharp knives. So in the you go to the blue letter, the Hebrew is the word for sharp.
Sword. Strong's H 6697. Sword.
So you go back to the source version.
Right. So
it says, right, outline of biblical usage: rock, cliff, rocky wall, rock with flat surface, block of stone, rock specific, rock. So those knives are made of stone, right? Rocks.
Right. And again, in the same region were found stone knives used for circumcision. Sharp stone knives are also mentioned in the Bible as special instruments for completion of the rite of circumcision. Right? So let's get that Numbers 15 and 38 as well.
It's Numbers chapter 15 and verse 38.
Right.
And it reads, Speak unto the children of Israel, and bid them that they make them fringes in the borders of their garments.
Right.
Throughout their generations.
Right, throughout their generations. Because even, we don't even need to go further, but that's even shown, even till now they do that. They don't put the ribbon of blue there, but they still maintain that same custom. And that's why you read in 2nd Ezra where it says, from verse 13 to 45, but 2nd Ezra 13 and verse 40 to 45, it talks about they go into another land to keep the laws, statutes, and commandments. You know. So let me finish reading on this part as well, right? So it says, on the stones, like I read, it says, do not steal, do not lie, do not kill. One may assume that these commandments are from the Old Testament and that they appeared in these lands before the arrival of the Spaniards. So before the Edomites arrived, these stones had these things on them. Before, not after, before. I remember you know that the mulatto wasn't made in America, right? Cool, so let's keep on reading, right? And it says, in 1974, in this very same region, were round stone slabs with menorahs, 7-pointed candlesticks on them. Along the sides of these menorahs, in the Aramaic language, was the inscription, Passover. We don't need to pull up a scripture for that, because Passover just went, right? So this is now again further archaeology to show whether these people were in that land. Hey, they must have knew the Bible, man. They did, because they were Israelites, right? They were Israelites. And let me finish it. It says, anyway, it says the Aramaic language we recall is a language of ancient Israel, right? Alongside the slab was found a long stone in the shape of which resembled a brick with an engraving of a ship, the emblem of the Zebulun tribe, alright? And with engraved the word Zipporah, the name of Moses' wife, perhaps the name of the ship. So these are, history speaks for itself, man. When you go through history, you really understand, it's not just us that's out there. It isn't, and we can't be ignorant. We can't be ignorant, right? And that's even when it comes to this truth, you can't be ignorant in anything. You really got to do your research, right? Let's go further, right? It says here, further down, so this is now going to page, we're still on page 30, right? It says, later, a meeting of Manasseh so Manasseh ben Israel, right? It says, emphasizes in one of his books that, in his books that many learned men believe that the 10 tribes of Israel settled on the other side of the river, right? So this goes into the Americas, right? And it's also talking about Josephus, right? So again, it's a scholar, right? It says later, after a meeting of Manasseh with the missionary Antonio de Monsertines, the rabbi family was convinced that the American Indians in particular are descendants of the 10 tribes of Israel, right? So I keep reading. Manasseh learned from the missionary that in 1642, when the latter was traveling in the mountains of Ecuador 4 Indians met him who greeted him with the Shema Israel, meaning, "Hear Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one." Hey, what do we do with that? Do we just say, okay, no, they're not Israelites. They must be Hamites just chilling in Ecuador. No, man. You know, keep going further. Right. And it says, the traveler said that the Indians spoke with him in Hebrew. Going back to the lost lunar stone. You know, there's many, there's like the Dighton stone, I believe, as well, which show archaeology of Hebrew inscription, right? And it says, and called themselves, listen to this, descendants of Reuben and Levi. So, and that's even to add that it wasn't just the northern kingdom that was in the Americas, right? Israel is scattered everywhere. Israel is scattered everywhere, right? And it says here, even Manasseh came to the conclusion that the American Indians are the descendants of the lost tribes of Israel, right? Then further, there's a quote, it says, on the 23rd of December 1649, he wrote to John Drury, the Puritan divine, that's of, I think that the descendants of the 10 tribes live not only in America, but also around the whole world. Those are those Jews who have not seen the second temple, and they will possibly be dispersed until the prophecies of their reunification be realized. So, hey, this is history, man. This is history showing that these Edomites, other nations, they know who we are, but we don't know who we are. So, you see, you might have your Hispanic friend, you know, Native American. I mean, it's rare. I've never seen a Native American so-called in England. But if you do, hey, somebody speak to them, you know, with all these sources that we provided, right? You know, you got any points? Can't, right? So, again, like, there's one more book I'm going to go into. I'll pull up a couple of quotes now, right? So we're going to pull up, this is a quote by, again, it's an Edomite, of course. Again, it's an Edomite. Let's get Proverbs, let's get also Proverbs 28, I believe. Let's get Proverbs 28. 28? No, not 28, Salakia. Get Proverbs 21, that's it, 21. Let's get Proverbs 21, and then we'll go into this. Alright, let's get this. Let's get this one. 21, verse 1, Bible Shah.
This is Book of Proverbs, chapter 21, and verse 1. The king's heart is in the hand of the Lord, as the rivers of water. He turneth it whithersoever he will.
Right, man. So the king's heart, that could be going into the people that are ruling here, right? The people that have ruled before other nations, right? Because the Most High puts the Spirit on them, and even these scholars, Edomite scholars, right? All these other nations, even our own people, to write these books, write these pieces of information, to research these kind of things, right? To really, just tell the truth, man. That's what the Most High does, right? You know, and you can't force the course of a river. The Most High is the one that's going to control that. He's put the Spirit on these scholars to tell us that, the haplotype of King James is found in Hispanics and Native Americans, right? All praise to the Most High, man. So, let's go. Let me pull up this quote, right? So this is by William Penn. William Penn, right? I'll give you a brief understanding on William Penn. So I believe, once my internet kind of speeds up, William Penn, right? So chiefly a lot of these, even you have like George Washington, right, the so-called founding father. He was saying that there were blacks in and around Europe and even in the Americas too. So there's certain pieces of information that we and we can go into these things even in studies in terms of showing us here in Britain too. But let me pull that up. I think it's like, okay, cool. So this is William Penn, right? William Penn. Search it up, right? So it says William Penn, observations made after visiting the interior of Pennsylvania, right? So it says, this is a quote from William Penn, he says, for their origin, right? I am ready to believe them of the Jewish race. I mean of the stock of the 10 tribes, and that for the following reason: first, they were to go to a land not planted nor known, which to be sure Asia or Africa were, because that's where most of the establishing kingdoms were based, in Asia and Africa, right? And it says, if not Europe, right? And he who intended that extraordinary judgment upon them might make passage not uneasy to them, as it is not impossible itself, from the easternmost parts of Asia. So the easternmost parts of Asia, that's referring to Assyria, right? Because we know we were taken captive into the lands of Assyria, right? And then it reads, to the westernmost parts of America, talking about 2nd Esdras 13 and verse 40 to 45. And you can even look at Columbus, where he actually used the Apocrypha to even gain the understanding that there was another land that was yet to be explored, right? And you can see that in certain movies. Just type that in on YouTube, Columbus Apocrypha, you will see that, right? And then it reads, and he who intended the extraordinary judgment upon them might make passage not uneasy to them, as it is not impossible in itself, from the easternmost parts of Asia to the westernmost parts, right? Then I'm going to jump a bit further down. Then it says, but this is not all. They agree in rites, they reckon by moons, and they offer their first fruits. They have a kind of feast of tabernacles, just like we were saying earlier, right? They have a kind of feast of tabernacles. They are said to lay their altar upon 12 stones. That's not a coincidence. They're mourning a year. Customs of women, right? Also, they have customs of women, just like we have where a woman may be unclean, right? That's in the scriptures, man, right? With many other things, tact, do not know occur, right? So much for the natives, right? So, and also, lastly, their language is lofty, yet narrow, but like the Hebrew in signification, full. So even the way that they spoke, and that goes back to that same source where the Jesuit, or the missionary, excuse me, heard them speaking in the Hebrew, right? It's the same thing. You got something?
Alright, let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 28. Let's start with verse 45.
It's the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, verse 45. Moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee, and shall pursue thee, and overtake thee, till thou be destroyed, because thou hearkenedst not unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to keep his commandments and his statutes which he commanded thee. And they shall be upon thee for a sign and for a wonder, and upon thy seed forever.
There shall be for a what?
Upon thee for a sign and for a wonder.
A sign and for a wonder. So the curses are upon the Israelites for a sign and a wonder. Right. Let's go to verse 16.
Go. Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 16, and it reads, cursed shall thou be in the city, and cursed shall thou be in the field.
Right, so the Israelites, when we break this down, we understand we were cursed on the plantation fields. Right, the Latinos, the Hispanics, they were on the plantation fields, right, in Cuba, Mexico, in South America, they were on the plantation fields too, right, some of them with us, right. So this applies to us and it applies to them. Let's go to verse 22.
Deuteronomy 28, verse 22.
Sorry, verse 21.
21. The Lord shall make the pestilence cleave unto thee.
The pestilence, going into the disease, right? Cleave unto thee, go on.
Until we have consumed thee from all of the land.
So who had a disease, right? Cleave unto them until they were consumed of the land. Right? Smallpox and all these other diseases that the Europeans came over with, destroyed them, right? This is the curses, man. This applies to them, right? I finished that.
Whither thou goest to possess it.
Right. Let's go down to verse 32.
Deuteronomy 28, verse 32.
Just start with 31.
Okay. Deuteronomy 28, verse 31, and it reads, thine ox shall be slain before thine eyes.
Right, thine ox shall be slain before thine eyes. Buffalo soldiers, right? What did what? They will go and slay the ox before the Native Americans to starve them out. We're going.
And thou shalt not eat thereof.
Right, this is literally talking about that situation right there, where the soldiers, right, would go and kill the food that they will get from the buffaloes, which is an ox, so that they could not eat thereof. Go on.
That thine arse shall be violently taken away from before thy face, and shall not be restored to thee. Thy sheep shall be given unto thine enemies, and thou shalt have none to rescue them.
Let's go down to verse 33.
33. God. The fruit of thy land and all thy labours shall be a nation which thou knowest not. Eat up, and thou shalt be only oppressed and crushed always.
So the Latinos and Native Americans, right? Plain. Let's go down to verse 37.
God. Deuteronomy 28, verse 37. And thou shalt become an astonishment, a proverb, and a byword among all nations, whether the Lord shall lead thee.
Right, so they're a proverb. So now they don't go according to what they were known as before. They're literally, some of Native Americans are being called black now, and Negroes and African American, right? So they even take on the same proverb and bywords that we have. Let's speed through this. Let's go down to verse 54.
Deuteronomy 28, verse 54. And it reads, So that the man that is tender among you and very delicate, his eye shall be evil towards his brother.
So when we say this and apply this to us, we go into what? Gang violence. But the Latinos, right, you have the Latin Kings, you have all of these Mexican, Puerto Rican, Dominican gangs doing the same things we're doing, right? So it applies to them too. When we say, how we see the black man looking at one another from this area and that area, they do the exact same thing in the same manner. But the other nations that live in America, they don't do that. Right. You see that in New York, you have these gangs that are doing the same thing that our people are doing, right? In Harlem and Brooklyn and these types of places, same way in LA and stuff like that. So this applies to them. Go on.
And towards the wife of his bosom.
Right? Evil towards the wife of his bosom. So when we apply this to us, we know this is going into how we just are very bad at marriages. Right? I don't got this pulled up. So this is the divorce rate in America. So these are the following divorce rates for women across the US. African Americans, 33% divorces per 1,000 married residents. Hispanic women, 22% divorces per 1,000 married residents. White women, 19% divorces per 1,000 married residents. Asian women, 11% divorces per 1,000. So it's African Americans and Hispanics at the top of that list, whites and Asians at the bottom of the list when it comes to marriages and divorce rates. Right? So this thing applies to them. Right? And let's go to verse 64.
Right. Deuteronomy 28 and verse 64. And it reads, And the Lord shall scatter thee among all people, from one end of the earth even to the other. And there thou shalt serve other gods.
Right, so they even went on in slave ships too. You had a trans-American slave trade too, where they were taken to different lands from South America to North America and vice versa. And there they served other gods. So that's what, the Latinos are deep and South Americans are deep into Catholicism, right? You've got that big statue in Brazil, and a lot of the lands that the Spanish came to, they really embedded their Catholicism into them. And let's read verse 65 as well.
And among, verse 65, And among these nations shalt thou find no ease, neither shall the sole of thy foot have rest.
Right, so no one really works harder than the Latinos and Native Americans. They work so hard. They're known for literally just working like 2-3 jobs, right? Working, them hard grafting jobs. They don't find ease, right? Go on.
But the Lord shall give thee there a trembling heart, and failing of eyes, and sorrow of mind.
Alright, so that's how they end up drinking themselves to destruction, you know, because of the things that they're witnessing, because they are the same people as us. So, you know, some of them, right, are mixed and stuff like that. Not saying all of them are Israelites, but we can see that these curses apply to a lot of them because a lot of them are Israelites.
Right.
Right.
So also as well, I'm going to bring out a scripture in Hosea. Let's go to Hosea 8, and we'll start at verse 11, right? And then I'm going to go to a one last source, unfortunately. But yeah, because the curses apply to everyone, man, and we can see as well, even in the scriptures. What we're about to read, this is mind blowing. You got that?
God.
Hosea 8.
Isaiah 8 and verse 11. God. Because Ephraim have made many altars to sin. Altars shall be unto him to sin.
Right, so the altars here, you look in, you go to the Americas, and that's the pyramids, the temples that they built. Because you can watch films like Apocalypse, you see them, and they're doing that kind of sacrificing each other. Right, read on.
Verse 12. I have written to him the great things of my law, but they were counted as a strange thing.
Right, because they weren't loving their brother, man. Because if they're sacrificing their brother, sacrificing to strange idols, right? They're going against the commandments, right? Read on.
They sacrifice flesh for the sacrifice of mine offering and eat it.
Right, okay.
But the Lord accepteth them not. Now will he remember their iniquity and visit their sins. They shall return to Egypt.
Right, and they did return to Egypt because they went back into slavery after that. Because the conquistadors, the Edomites, came over and destroyed them, didn't they? Right? So they went back into Egypt, right? And we can see the temples that they were building, sacrificing each other. Hey, that was going against what the Most High ordained, man. Right? And you can films like Apocalypse Now, I believe it is, Apocalypto, I think. You see that there were specific tribes within the Americas they had temples built, pyramids built. There were pyramids, just like you see in the land of Egypt, man. And that's our people that built that. So it's the same spirit. They built temples and they sacrificed. It's the same thing, man. So now I'm gonna pull my last source, right? Unfortunately, it's the last source, right? This is a book by James Adair, right? James Adair. So from 1735, he resided there for 40 years amongst the native tribes. 40 years amongst the native tribes. It's not Wikipedia. Right? This is not Wikipedia. See that? So he resided there for 40 years and was almost entirely cut off from the outside world, right? From 1744, he resided chiefly among the Chickasaw. In 1751, he then moved to the Lawrence County, South Carolina. So obviously he was kind of in and out amongst these tribes, right? So he's got a book, right, called The History of the American Indian, right? I'm going to touch on like 3 points and then you can't close up here, right? So, this is on page, again, PDFs can be sent out, right? This is on page 12, right? Because some people like to say, oh, maybe they're Chinese, you know, maybe they're Japanese, right? But let's see what James Adair says, right? Who was amongst them for 40 years. Let's see if he agrees with that, right? He says, some have supposed the Americans to be descended from the Chinese, right? But neither their religion, laws, customs, etc., agree in the least with those of the Chinese, which sufficiently proves they are not of that line. So this is James Adair, an Edomite from the 1700s, saying that's not correct. Because some people push that saying and say, okay, they came from Siberia, they're Chinese. No, they're not, right? Because we're reading here, this Edomite is going against that, man, right? It's not Wikipedia as well, let's touch on that, man. And then I'm going to go to as well page 16, again, just the fundamentals, right? Fundamentals. And then, can I pause it? Leviticus 11. And we know that, everyone should know that, man. Everyone should know that, Leviticus 11, you know, we don't eat pork, right? So there's another one, this is page 16, it says, as the Israelites were divided into tribes and had chiefs over them, so the Indians divided themselves. Each tribe forms a little community within the nation. So we can see that's the same spirit, man. They had little, you know, they might have I don't know, let's say it's Zebulun or Gad. They kind of live over there, some of them live over there. It's the same thing, the same spirit, man. And as the nation has its particular symbol, so has each tribe the badge from which it is denominated. Right, so again, you see here the same, it's pretty much the same spirit, man. Right? And also again, here we see the Indians, right? They didn't actually eat pork. They didn't actually eat pork. That was a custom that they had, right? And then obviously when we have now the coming of Hispanics and whatnot, and all these, because they were went into idolatry too. You kind of see that with they have like the owl spirit and all these kind of, same with the so-called Mexicans. They have the totem poles, and you kind of see they kind of dance around that kind of worship. That's idolatry. See what I'm saying, right? So we see that, right? And the last point I'm going to go to, right, is someone can pull Tobit. Someone can pull Tobit. Tobit 5:10. Alright? The last point, and then we close up.
Tobit chapter 5 verse 10. Then Tobit said unto him, Brother, show me of what tribe and family thou art. To whom he said, Doest thou seek for a tribe or family, or an hired man to go with thy son? Then Tobit said unto him, I would know rather thy kindred and name. Then he said, I am Azarias, the son of Ananias the great, and of thy brethren. Then Tobit said, Thou art welcome, brother. Be not now angry with me, because I have inquired to know thy tribe and thy family, for thou art my brother.
So even on that point, that's just something we do amongst ourselves. Where's your father from? Your father from so-and-so? That's the same thing that Indians were doing, right? Let's read that here. It's page 17. It says, however, it is a very rare thing to find any of them of a narrow temper, and though they do not keep one promiscuous common flock, yet it is to the very same effect, for everyone has his own family or tribe, and when one of them is speaking, either of the individuals or habitations of any of his tribe, he says, he is of my house, or it is my house, right? So going into that same thing, right? And then it goes further on. When the Indians are traveling in their own country, they inquire for a house of their own tribe. And if there be any, they go into it. If there be any, they go into it and are kindly received, though they never saw the persons before. They eat, drink, and regale themselves with as much freedom as at their own table. So you see that's in Tobit, man. The Indians kind of, Shalom, brother, and kind of, I don't even know you, but you're from the same tribe as me. It's the same thing we're seeing in the scriptures here, God.
Well, praise to the Most High. So we're gonna wrap up on that. We're gonna read one last thing, and before we pray up, read down to verse 17.
Exodus 20, verse 1. Exodus chapter 20 and verse 1, and it reads, And God spake all these words, saying, I am the Lord thy God, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image, or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them, for I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children, unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me, and showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me, and keep my commandments. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless that taketh his name in vain. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work. But the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work. Thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, nor thy servant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that is in them is, and rested the seventh day. Wherefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. Honor thy father and thy mother, and thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house, and Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, nor his manservant, nor his maidservant, nor his ox, nor his ass, nor anything that is thy neighbor's.
Shema Mashaki Hawashai.
Shema Mashaki.
So with that, we're going to close up. We'll praise to the Most High. We're going to pray before we fully.
I'm keeping this covenant. Man's had enough of it. Trust. My people are suffering every day. The sin that we smothered in. It seems like we loving it. Do we? 'Cause we never stopping it.